Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to answer the questions before the House. But before I move on to answer the question, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to congratulate our Secretary General, Jeanette, for this milestone achievement in her career. Jeanette joins other women leaders in the ranks of leadership positions around the country, and I wish her all the best in her parliamentary roles. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, 10 Fijian women lost their lives due to intimate partner violence. In 2020, 4 Fijian women lost their lives the same way. COVID-19 related lockdowns also saw a hike in domestic violence reports over the past year, continuing till now. This includes physical, emotional, sexual violence. We believe that violence against women and girls is everyone's responsibility. Mr. Speaker, the Elimination of Violence Against Women programs have been developed in alignment with conventions on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, CEDAW 1979, and the Beijing Platform for Action, BPA, as outlined in Section 5.18 of the National Gender Policy and detailed in the Women's Action Plan of 2010 to 2019, and of course, the current 2021 to 2025 strategic direction, the WPA, that lists elimination of violence against women and girls as one of the 3 strategic priority areas. Mr. Speaker, before I address the question on monitoring and evaluation, I wish to firstly share what the government through the Ministry of Women, Children and Poverty Alleviation is doing in relation to gender-based violence. Fiji requires a coordinated effort in partnership with various government ministries, departments, non-government organizations, community in particular, working to address the issue of violence against women and children through public awareness and training. In the same way, the monitoring and evaluation of the Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls program is undertaken in partnership with various stakeholders to gauge the impact of work we are doing in terms of eliminating violence against our women and girls. Mr. Speaker, the stakeholder partnerships are also used to implement our programs, and this includes the development of the Fiji's first ever National Action Plan to prevent violence against women and girls, which I have spoken about depth in this Parliament in the last month. The implementation of the Fijian National Development Service protocols for responding to cases of gender violence, review of the 2009 domestic violence legislation, coordination work of the gender-based violence and emergency working group during emergencies, and this was strengthened after TC Winston and has been very active in gender-based violence response work, particularly during COVID-19 pandemic and TC Asa and Ana in the northern and the eastern divisions, and we hope to continue with this work as the cyclone season is approaching once again. The administration and management of the National Domestic Violence Toll-Free Helpline, and if I could mention the toll-free helpline once again, it's 1560 for victims of domestic violence. Please feel free to call on this number. This helpline is with the Women's Crisis Center, and we get weekly updates, and of course the center is providing services to those victims of domestic violence. Of course, we have the child helpline 1325. Children who are victims of domestic violence can also use these toll-free numbers to access the services. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry commits to achieving results in this area of concern through its annual costed operation plan, providing innovative approaches and key strategies to progress the work to prevent violence against our women and girls. This plan further identifies available opportunities to overcome challenges in regards to programming on eliminating violence against women and girls, and provides insights on some of the key outcomes of our programs, from designing and managing, implementing, monitoring, and evaluation across a whole range of different types of violence against women and girls programs. Although there are some exceptions, few violence against women and girls programs have incorporated robust systems to monitor and evaluate its impact, yet the current evidence base, I must say, is pretty weak. This is due to many factors, such as the difficulty of obtaining reliable data, the complexity and context specifics of violence interventions, and the social dynamics surrounding these issues. Violence against women and girls programming takes place in a very complex environment of social change processes, and a variety of tools and approaches are necessary for assessing evidence, results, and ultimately the impact of our programs. We've learned a lot. Learning through training and awareness is the most important outcome of monitoring and evaluation. Mr. Speaker says some specific monitoring and evaluation mechanisms include the evaluation of the zero-tolerance violence-free communities, the internal evaluation of the domestic violence helpline and provision of monthly data report, the training, follow-up and lessons learned and experiences of our trainees, the pre- and post-training evaluation, example, gender-based violence training and awareness, to provide an immediate response on the impact of the training and awareness attended. In 2018, a monitoring and evaluation unit of the National Women's Machinery was established, and that is now being strengthened to monitor the operations and programs of our department in alignment with set targets, including gender-based violence targets. We have quarterly reports on progress, and of course, we are trying to up our social media communication campaigns and messages and issues around this topic. Mr. Speaker, so it is important to understand that impact and change may only be visible in the long term, because violence against women and girls is intimately linked to deeply entrenched social norms, values, beliefs, attitudes, behaviors, and practices of the past, and as a result, can be difficult to address. There may be many barriers that need to be overcome before impact is evident. However, we've seen an increase in reporting, and I say this is an outcome of creating awareness of our program, giving women the confidence to report, and of course, gender sensitizing our police department. Women can feel free to call on the number, can feel free to report, and we continue with our training within our police force. Despite the challenges, Mr. Speaker, it is nevertheless critical to measure long-term impacts. Having said that, what I've just mentioned, the increase in reporting over the years is a perfect indicator that programs have a good impact in long terms of encouraging our victims and standards to break the silence and seek justice, recognizing violence as a crime, as it should be. For example, between August 2020 to June 2021, a total of 2,933 genuine calls were intercepted on the domestic violence helpline. Of course, I cannot give you a breakdown of the ethnicity data here, Mr. Speaker, because violence affects everybody. It cuts across all. It cuts across all homes. It cuts across all social denominators. It does not spare rich, poor. It does not see religion. It does not see culture. It does not see where you live. Anyone and everyone can be a victim of domestic violence. Mr. Speaker, of the total calls, 54% were from the Central Division, 39% from the Western Division, 5% from the Northern Division, and 1% from the Eastern Division, and 1% from unknown location. 78% of callers were women, and 22% were men. Of the total calls, 38% was from survivors, and 62% from bystanders. Of the total calls, 52% was domestic violence related. 72% of that were from survivors and 28% from bystanders. Mr. Speaker, we also gather from the domestic violence helpline statistics that post-COVID lockdowns have had an increase in the instances of DV, with the trend being the same last year and the calls jumping from 149 in August 2020 to 817 calls in May 2021. The calls per year have increased over the past 4 fiscal years, with calls in 2017 being 952, in 2018-19, 927, and 2,332 in 2019-2020, and of course, the numbers are escalating. Statistics from police in relation to DV were also shared in this August House by our former minister in her response to Honourable Ranrodo's question last year. Mr. Speaker, to move forward, what is needed is the understanding that addressing violence against women and girls requires a holistic approach. When seeking to transform social norms, it is necessary to work at both individual and collective levels, addressing values, beliefs, attitudes, behaviors, and practices in an integrated way. Change occurs at different levels at different paces. Change is influenced by multiple factors, and change is reversible. As a result, long-term engagements and short support strategies are needed to ensure sustainability and positive transformation. Mr. Speaker, it is with this that the Ministry will continue to work with our development partners, our NGOs, government ministries to develop and use relevant monitoring and evaluation framework to capture the impact of our evaluation programs. To make the change needed in Fiji and to make visible the ending violence against women, we say it is everyone's responsibility and it's everyone's business. The Ministry is working and involving all stakeholders to ensure that they also have a role in the soon to be finalized Fiji's National Action Plan. The National Action Plan actually will explain using data and evidence what the root cause of violence. Of course, we know what the root cause of violence is, and we have been trying to find a solution all these years. But we hope that the National Action Plan will give us data and evidence. What is the root cause of violence against all women and girls in Fiji, and what additional contributing factors makes the violence more likely to happen again. This plan will also have a thorough monitoring and evaluation framework to assess the impact of our National Action Plan. And once this rolls out, I'll be happy to share more details in this August House. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.